Caroline Rose is a New York indie rock, pop rock artist who dropped Loner earlier this year and received a lot of rave reviews, but again, it's just one of those albums I've decided to go back to and review later on. Loner is very much an album that describes itself just by looking at the title. Caroline Rose is a very humorous, self-deprecating person that sort of sees herself as being an outsider to the norms and the obvious real world. And sure, this kind of thing has been done plenty of times before. Loads of artists seem to have this outsider perspective. Oh, we're different to everyone else, we're a little bit cooler, we're indie, we're hipster. Usually this kind of thing turns me off instantly. Like, if you're that different, then you don't need to express outright how different you are. If you're different, people will just know it by looking at you and listening to the things you say. Being different, honestly, is one of those things that's so teenage angsty that when older singer-songwriters come across with this type of attitude, it really leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Kind of shit you're gonna see on Tumblr posts, you know, not a 28-year-old singer-songwriter. However, I will give it to Caroline Rose and say she does this in such a great way. There's a lot of self-awareness to this album. Just by looking at the album cover right here, you can quite clearly see that she doesn't take herself all that seriously. In the opening song, More of the Same, Caroline here is referencing going to parties and seeing people with perfect bodies and great cool haircuts and straight white teeth, and I am absolutely flattered that she would reference me in one of her songs. It is truly quite fantastic that she recognizes that I have all of these qualities. But she goes on to just generally say that these people are just more of the same. Sure, they look great from the outside, but they're all the same. They don't really have an interest in her as a person and that kind of stuff. It is extremely cynical to look at people in that kind of way, but I kind of see the angle she's taking this from, in the sense that honestly, you do go to parties and you come across a lot of people like this at times. You know, those kind of people that really need to desperately get drunk to become that fun, bubbly, full of life type person when they're really not that type of person when they're sober. Musically, I would say this track is really good too. I think it's just such a nice, straightforward pop rock tune that doesn't really go for anything else other than that. And there are some funny lines here that crop up too that just make Caroline separate herself from the average singer-songwriter. But I also do like the acceptance on her part, in the sense that, yeah, maybe it's just me that's not very cool. Like, sure, she's judging people from the get-go, but at the same time she kind of admits that actually maybe it's just me that doesn't fit in. So even though this kind of attitude can be a little pretentious, maybe she's aware enough to know that maybe she's the problem too. Cry is another catchy indie rock tune that has this buzzing synth that plays throughout the track. It's a great chorus too. Cry, you better run, run. Much of the album just typically stays in this lane, this really upbeat, catchy indie rock vibe that I typically reminded of artists from the 2000s that were really popular at the time doing this indie rock sound. I would say that Money really does drag the sound down though, where this track here, it has all these elements coming together that just really don't work, and it's a weird moment for the album because everything else just feels like it's flowing incredibly well, but then this one track just feels completely out of place. And generally the sound of the album isn't all that original to begin with anyway, so I wouldn't say this is the most unique thing you're going to find all year, but I would say that there are some really fun indie pop tracks that are worth your time. Like Getting to Me as well, where she once again goes introspective, talks about how she's not really fitting in, she's coming across really pretty women who have perfect bodies and this beautiful like jewelry and all that kind of stuff, and she's like, hey, you know what, this is actually finally starting to get to me. It's kind of thing that shouldn't be an issue, and I shouldn't be viewing people and comparing them to me, but it's just instinctual. I can't really escape this mindset, and look, it gets to me. Which I appreciate the honesty, honestly. I think that This kind of thing affects a lot of people, and to just be brutally honest and straightforward and say, look, it affects me, I think that's totally okay. Media portrayals of perfect bodies in men and women are completely apparent everywhere you go. Just watch an advert, just look at posters, advertising clothing lines and stuff like that. Like, this kind of thing would get to you if it's something that you're insecure about. These expectations that aren't really forced onto you, but they are still there, even if you don't really think about them consciously regularly. I think Caroline tackles this kind of thing really well. I think she becomes a very relatable character for younger women who also feel this way too. If I'm reading into the lyrics properly on Bikini, I feel as though that's what this track is going for as well, except this time she's focusing on this little girl who has this idealistic look and body and all that kind of stuff, and people are like, hey, you gotta put on this bikini, shake your butt, dance around a little bit, you know, you gotta be on TV and the movies, you gotta become this model, that kind of thing. Which again is quite a cynical outlook to have, but I wouldn't really dismiss it either, because I think there are younger women that get led astray into the modeling business because they have a certain look, and then, you know, there's all these other issues with modeling in itself where these rich people force women to go on these diets so they look a certain way, but these diets are completely horrific and bad for you. But with this track, I mean, I think it's just sold in such a fun indie pop kind of way that you don't really have to pay attention to what the deeper meaning is, because I think she has a good sense of humor and a good way of tackling it. I really like this sarcastic humor. I mean, I've always found that kind of thing really funny and relatable anyway, and I think Caroline Rose is just another great example of this style of music that can be done great. I will say Jeannie Becomes a Mum is probably my favourite track here, and possibly a track that could make my year-end list too. I think it's such a great tune here, and also the lyrics, once again, she's such a great songwriter here. The track here is looking at this person, Jeannie, I guess, who lives this perfect lifestyle, who has, you know, everything going for her, but at the same time, even if you're living in colour, as she says, the world doesn't stop, so things still get in the way, you're still in the real world, you know, shit's gonna go down. Kind of deconstructing this idealistic lifestyle that rich people may live, but it's only on the surface of how good it is, because once real life gets in the way, you really are living just like anyone else. You've just got more money and shit still can hit you just like any other ordinary person. And yeah, I mean, I've been really positive about this album throughout this review, not really said too many negative things, because it actually is a genuinely really good album. Sure, I don't know if it's got the full longevity to it that'll stick with me over time, which is why I think a 7.5 out of 10 is the best I can go for here. Because musically, a few moments don't impress me all that much and feel kind of in comparison to others, but as an album, I think it's really good. I definitely recommend it if you've not heard it already. Just not quite an 8 out of 10, because I just don't know how in the long run it's going to stick with me, but I do genuinely like a lot of the tunes here. A lot of the lyrical topics. She's a great songwriter. Do check this out. Let me know your thoughts if you have heard it already. Comment, goodbye, well.